Carla, if you would please take roll.
Mark Arnold.
Here.
Whitney Hall.
Here.
Cody Haney.
Here.
Marvin Kusick.
Here.
Eddie Mack.
Here.
David Mason.
Here.
Cole Ream.
Here.
Don Roberts.
Here.
That's everybody.
I have a quorum. I hereby call the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission regular meeting to order. The first order of business is to approve the minutes of the regular Planning Commission meeting of August 21st, and I want to say thank you very much to Commissioner Cole for taking my place last month. You're welcome. So if everybody has a chance to take a look at those, I'll entertain a motion.
You have a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Item number 2, approval of minutes carries. We'll drop all the way down to paragraph 8, lot splits. Paragraph 1, consider a lot split for part of Block 27, Jonesville Edition, located behind 22-221, I'll get it right, North Independence. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, City Planning Commissioners. The slide in front of you, the yellow box illustrates the area that's being split off and added to the Gaslight Theater property. When we look at lot splits, we want to make sure that we have access to road, water, and sewer, and we do meet all of that criteria through the Gaslight property. Here's the actual survey that shows you the piece. This was what was yellow in the previous slide. It's recommended for approval. We do have one person signed up to speak on this, Mr. Eli Berry.
Just in case anyone had any questions. Anyone has a question?
Are there any questions for him? Any questions for staff?
Motion to
I have a motion to approve. Second. And a second. Motion and second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed? And that motion carries. Drop down to number 11, variances. The first one is to consider a sidewalk variance for ADM at 1301 North 4th Street, described as the south side of Section 2. Is that right? S2. What's that?
South half.
South
half.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
South half of Section 5, Township 22 North, Range 6, west of the Indian Meridian. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The slide in front of you shows the ADM property on North 4th. As you're aware, in our sidewalk ordinance, when you apply for a building permit, if there's not a sidewalk there, then the ordinance requires you to build one. In this case, ADM simply built a small, relative to the size of the elevator, about a 1,300 square foot electrical building, and that triggered the need for the sidewalk on 4th Street. And they're requesting a variance to not put that sidewalk in. Are there any questions of staff? Thank you.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. I have a motion and a second to approve the variance for ADM. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. The next variance is to consider a sidewalk variance for Jerry Holding, located at 1129 North 54th Street, which is also known as the southeast quarter of Section 1, Township 22 North, Range 6, west of the Indian Meridian, Track 7, Enid Energy Center, First Edition. Chris?
This slide in front of you, the yellow outline shows the property that we're considering this evening is on the east side of 54th. It's just slightly south of Sooner Trend. To help you get oriented, it is north of 412. Property, as you can see by the aerial photo, is existing. Mr. Holdings built a small addition onto the property, and like the previous one of ADM, when you do an addition and there is no sidewalk, the ordinance requires it. This is on 54th Street. Last month, we talked about one south of 412 on 54th. You did recommend a variance there, and that was for TP&L, the laydown yard for the wind turbine. Are there any questions of staff?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the variance for Jerry Holding. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries. Item number 3 is to consider a sidewalk variance for Atwoods at 5810 West O&K Garriott Road, described as the southeast quarter of Section 10, Township 22 North, Range 6 west of the Indian Meridian. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The slide in front of you shows the Atwoods property. The site in consideration is outlined in yellow. This has been an expansion of how they are bringing in large vehicles, semis into their property. And what I want to show you on this slide that shows better than on their drawings is the natural drainage. To see the flow here is like this, and it goes this way. Well, they're willing to do the sidewalk up to here, and they're asking for relief over this drainage area, and that is illustrated in, this is the yellow box that we're talking about. This is their site plan, and right here, this slide, they're showing the proposed sidewalk here, and it's my understanding they're only asking for a variance at the crossing the drainage. They're willing to put in the balance of the sidewalk. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. I have a second. Motion is second to approve the Atwood sidewalk variance. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed? And that motion carries. Item number 4 is to consider a request for variance to ordinances 12-6-21, street right-of-way widths, and 12-8-3S, Table 1, street design standards for property located at 1724 West Owen K. Garriott Road. Robert.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. This is a request for a variance to the site plan requirement to provide design standard right-of-way on fronting streets. And this is a slide of a site plan on 1700 block of West Garriott Road, just north of Garriott and just east of Lincoln Street. And this is just shows the general site plan. The existing right-of-way is about 33 feet on O&K Garriott Road. The ordinance requires the standard, which is 120 total, or 60 feet to the north. I'll blow this up a little more so you can see a little better. So this is an existing building site, which they are expanding the site, so they have an existing building on the site. The existing right-of-way shown just at the sidewalk that abuts the roadway. The proposed ordinance would require 60 feet, which would place the new right-of-way inside the porch area of the existing building. They've made a variance request to go down to 40 feet. However, there's an option that's recommended to limit the variance, to move the variance down to a 50-foot instead of a 60-foot, 50-foot, which would place, as shown on the blue line here, place it about 8 feet away from the existing porch and building area, and still would provide for future development of the street, turn lanes, and utilities, and et cetera. So the variance request to vary the ordinance down to 40 feet. The recommendation is to vary it down to 50 feet, which would clear the building, any obstructions that's there. Now, we'll point out that the reason they requested the 40 feet, that the setback 25 feet would then be right at the building line. However, we think it's just more appropriate to make sure that the right-of-way, adequate right-of-way is provided. So the recommendation is to vary the ordinance down to 50 feet.
Chris, do we have anybody else to talk about it? Pardon?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Henry?
Do we know what type of business it's going to be?
Yes, we do. It's a masseuse is going to be there.
Is this going to a special project then? I mean, it's not going to lead to more people applying for this?
Well, I think a variance should be a special condition. The special condition here is that the building is existing in place, and if you complied with the ordinance, it would put the right-of-way, at least through the porch portion of the existing building, would require some removal of some existing structure. That's the unusual condition for this project. It's why we would consider a variance here.
So the porch is already built on it, right?
That's correct.
It encroaches on the easement.
No, it does not encroach. They build it on their own property, but the ordinance requires that they provide the right-of-way per the standards. per the city standards, and on the primary arterial, which Garrett Road, that would be 60 feet of right-of-way on that side of the street. So that's required. They provide that. The ordinance requires it. We think in this case, because of the existing structure that pre-exists, that it would be appropriate to vary that ordinance down to 50 feet.
For historical reference, is this what used to be Hans Cleaners, the dry cleaner? No, it's not. Which one is this?
This was originally developed and used most recently as a single-family home, being converted to commercial use.
I see. Has the 50-foot been proposed to them? I mean, is there any issues with that? The 50-foot in lieu of the...
Yeah, I don't know that there's any issue. I think their issue was that, they're just trying to get the building setback. The issue would be that in the future, if they make additional buildings, then they'll have a 10-foot further back setback for the buildings, which would be appropriate for the street anyway.
Any more questions?
Any other precedent of this type, even along that way, or this happened before? Is this new?
There's some of this actually in our downtown area. Some buildings that actually have street easements.
This is
Decades old.
This is fairly new occurrence. The ordinance has probably been in effect for 5-6 years to that. Prior to that, it was I think 50-foot was the standard prior to the amendment of the ordinance about 4 or 5, 6 years ago. But no, this is the first one that's come on this level. So it's the first time it's occurred in this event. And I think in most all other cases of site plan, the right-of-way has been provided.
So this easement is granted for this building, or is it granted if the building's tore down, they can, say 5 years from now, they can tear it down, they can still rebuild on the same?
I think you're
Just for this building?
For that building.
I think the question, if the variance was approved, then they would just provide the 50-foot of right-of-way, which is additional 17 feet of right-of-way. That right-of-way would be permanent. Buildings would not be built on that in the future. The issue would be the question is if it was destroyed and had to be put back, now the setback would be 10 feet further north. It would be 10. New buildings would most likely be 10 feet further off the right-of-way, or would be 10 feet further north than this existing building. But the existing building is not a violation. It would stay as long as it's there.
I don't know if I understood that. I guess my question that seems would be, would a building that came after that, if this building was to go away, would it be under the variances or the variance that we approve now, or would it be under the standing ordinance?
Okay.
Is it grandfathered?
The variance is just a variance to the ordinance requiring 60 feet. If it was approved at 50 feet, then the right-of-way would be provided at 50 feet.
For this particular building?
Well, for this lot.
For the property. So
right.
Going forward with the property, they would be able to use
Right,
that
so going forward, the setback would be off of whatever the right-of-way is approved, whether it's 40 feet or 50 feet or 60 feet. The setback would be off of the right-of-way after right-of-way is provided.
Gotcha.
That's my question.
I guess what I'm looking at is whether you go 50 foot or 60 foot, the existing building's still within the 25-foot setback.
That's correct. But that's not necessarily unusual. We acquire right-of-way when necessary, and so we do acquire right-of-way. Sometimes the buildings end up being in that setback, but they're existing or pre-existing, and there's no violation because we move the right-of-way line. It only affects future development.
Right.
When that occurs, Commissioner, then it just becomes a non-conforming setback because the additional right-of-way made it non-conforming. The owner of the building, the owner of the property did nothing.
And with the deed and plat restrictions in that area, I don't see heavy commercial development through there. So everybody's trying to use the existing structures that are there without making major changes to them. So I don't really think we have to worry about two shopping malls being planted on this corner.
I just kind of worry about setting a precedence for all the other property down through there.
There are a few properties along there that are zoned commercial, and I don't think you're going to see them asking for these. I can't see a reason why they would ask for variances. They would just like to do something, and with part of the porch being in there, we don't want them to have to tear the porch off.
It's typically, most development is does not add to building, but they reconstruct on these sites. When they reconstruct, then they have the ability to redesign and fit within the new right-of-way needs. In this case, they're not reconstructing, they're just adding on to existing facilities, so it's unique in that case.
I might have a guess, might have a question or.
Okay. I think the commissioners would like to talk to Mr. Bergman.
My name's Jeff Bergman with Bergman Holtzen, and we're representing the property owner. I'd like to mention, too, that that additional right-of-way is for when you 4-lane or 5-lane for utility relocation. That's all been done, too, so that's pretty much fully developed probably at this time. And I think the owner would be fine with 50-foot. And I don't know if I'm wrong, Chris, but if they tore that house down and wanted to build a new structure, wouldn't it be site plan review again?
Yes,
and you could ask for 60 feet again if you wanted.
That's true.
So
That helps a little bit. Okay. Everybody clear on that? We have a motion. Motion to approve the variance?
At
Foot?
50 foot?
50 foot.
At 50 feet. Thank you. I have a second. Motion is second to approve the variance at 50 feet. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last item is to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second? I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed? We're adjourned.